to a bonus episode of This is the Greatest Song I've Ever Heard in My Entire Life, a podcast about the music we love and why we love it. I'm Scott Interrante. Joining me, as always, is Katherine Moore. Katherine, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm so excited for what we're talking about today, our topic, our special guest, and also the VMAs are tonight. So there's lots going on today.
Yeah, so the VMAs are happening tonight when this is released, September 11, 2024, but we are talking about a very special, different VMAs, the 2009 VMAs, and to do that, we are joined by Rachel Brodsky, friend of the show, music and culture writer, and co-host of the In Sync podcast. Rachel, thanks for coming back and talking to us about this.
Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about this. I want to write a book about this tonight.
Someone has to, yeah. So the 2009 VMAs happened on September 13th, 2009. We're about 15 years away from that. And you might be thinking to yourself, like, why was the 2009 VMAs so special? I will refresh your memory with this clip here.
Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm going to let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time.
So I think, we'll spend a lot of time on this episode talking about that moment and the extremely long tail of influence that moment has had on pop culture for the last 15 years. But I would just be curious to get both of your, other reactions to revisiting this and watching it.
I thought it was it was like a kind of a weird aesthetic. I don't not remember 2009 being that kind of ugly to look at. I think the set and everything was very grungy. It was giving almost Rent vibes, the musical Rent vibes.
Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed is how many of the people in the audience we still care about today. There wasn't a lot of oh yeah, them, except for 303, that one band. I was oh yeah, them.
Yeah.
But everyone else I was oh, we kind of know these people still. So I thought that was a really interesting part that I wasn't really expecting.
The amount of talent in the room definitely washed over me like a wave.
Yeah.
First of all, I remember that this was the fall after Michael Jackson passed away.
Right.
And MTV was clearly reeling from that. And so they dedicated a lot of, obviously Madonna is the first person you see, and she gives this long speech and kind of manages to make it about herself.
Yeah.
Which, go on.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated how MTV did bring Janet Jackson to help pay tribute in that huge opening number, that medley of a lot of his hits and the whole dance thing, and that was really cool to watch. And I loved watching Lady Gaga's medley performance because this was her first big year, and she obviously won Best New Artist. And holy crap, Beyonce doing Single Ladies, which was then and now still my favorite Beyonce song. I just thought this level of talent all in one room together, and obviously to Taylor Swift, who we'll talk about, I know, but all these people in one room was just does this happen anymore?
Yeah.
And just the quality of the performances themselves. But there was the Russell Brand of it all, because Russell Brand was hosting, and I was sitting there with my head in my hands rewatching, oh my god, do we remember when Russell Brand was considered cool and funny?
Yeah.
And he manages to make a rape joke and a hermaphrodite joke and so many horrible jokes, and wow, yeah. And then finally I just with the Taylor Swift thing that we're here to mostly talk about, I just hadn't seen it in context in probably 15 years. I've seen that clip so many times, but just to see it in context and relive the aftermath of it, even within the show, people just booing. Anytime his name is even mentioned, people just lose their shit.
Yeah.
In a bad way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is really crazy. The Russell Brand thing, genuinely every segment that he came and spoke, he made a joke about having sex with a woman in the audience. And one of them, like you mentioned, was a date rape joke about Megan Fox. And it was truly truly horrifying.
Yeah. It was hard to watch those segments of it.
Yeah, and I know, Rachel, you also mentioned something interesting when we were emailing about this, about the changing landscape from now, or from then to now, with Russell Brand, where he comes out and he makes a sort of reference to endorsing Obama and how America should have free healthcare. And now in 2024, he is like literally appearing at the Republican National Convention.
Is he appearing at the Republican?
Oh, he was. Yeah, he was there.
Oh, I missed that. Wow, I just thought he was like a YouTube conspiracy theorist, like libertarian. Yeah. But yeah, in my notes, I wrote proof that the horseshoe effect is real.
Well, to me, the way that he was framing it was like, because he was going against pop culture at the time. He made a comment that was like, last year I made a joke about like free healthcare, and this year like we elected Barack Obama. So it almost seemed more like he was reacting to against something, and I still think he's doing that, which is like reacting against like, you know, what the public is leaning towards too. So I don't know. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about Russell Brand because I don't.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve it, but that was a very interesting host choice.
Yeah, it's making me uncomfortable, and I've got an erection in these ridiculous trousers.
So before we get into, you know, all the big Taylor and Kanye stuff, were there other performances that we want to spend some more time on? I know you mentioned the Paparazzi, which is truly iconic.
Iconic.
Such a moment for Lady Gaga. It's the one that I remember from this show and that I rewatch from the show all the time, so much that I kind of forgot about all the other performances. And there are some really interesting things. So are there any others that stood out that we want to talk about?
I would like to talk about, first of all, just personally, the Muse performance. I was so into Muse at that time. Like, that was like so important to me, and everything just kind of culminated for me in 2009 with Muse. I was a big Twilight fan, so they displayed the New Moon like extended trailer, but then also I loved the Jay-Z album, and that performance was really cool. Like, I don't know, it's a whatever, but like I thought that was a very cool, very of the time performance of that too.
I have to admit that I've always hated Empire State of
That's
Mind.
fair,
yeah. Truly can't stand
That's
it.
Okay.
The two performances that really stuck with me, or that rather I was really happy to revisit, I was pleasantly surprised by Muse because I completely forgot that they were ever even a part of the VMAs, but I felt a little bit bad for Pink, underrated queen, who did trapeze work blindfolded while like not missing a note, but she's like relegated to like the back third of the show, and no one really remembers this. I think people remember it, but it's not like the first thing, anywhere near the first thing that you think of, because I think that might have been the first time that I saw her do her trapeze thing. Now it's like she's known for it.
Yeah, she does it all the time. She can't stop being in the air.
Yeah. So it's just like, wow, they kind of did her dirty with like putting her in like the back third of the show. I was happy to see Green Day because I felt like, well, they were as popular then as they were in 2004, as they were in 1994, as they are now. They're just like classic. I went to a wedding recently. This is my college roommate's wedding, and her niece is, I think, 14 or 15, and she was talking to me about music, and I was like, what do you like? She's like, well, I love Green Day. And I was just like, oh,
love that.
This is the best. This is so great.
You're so generational. I love that.
Yeah, so yeah, just loved seeing Green Day.
I was thinking, watching the Muse performance, which they do in a Broadway theater, which is packed, so they like pack full of Broadway theater for this performance, and then the street outside is also packed because at one point Matt Bellamy like runs outside during the song, plays for the crowd outside, and then comes back in. And between that and, like you said, the Jay-Z performance, which starts outside and comes in through the audience, and then the Taylor Swift performance where she starts on the subway platform, gets into a subway, goes uptown to Radio City, comes out, and then it's coordinated like that. Just the production craft was so impressive in a way that like I kind of forgot how powerful MTV and the VMAs were at this time.
Yeah.
Like they had the money and the production value to do stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that was such a fame moment. I don't think it occurred to me then that they were channeling fame. I mean, I assume they were channeling fame with her ending up on the roof of a cab. Yeah, it sent chills down my spine to watch. I loved seeing that performance at the time. I have so much more to say just about, but I think I was writing in my notes, she can do it with a broken heart.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, we probably know this, but the subway part was pre-tape, and it was just like she got into the crowd at the end. But still, like, knowing
you're
that
really
she
ruining the magic, Katherine.
I'm sorry. I want to just get ahead of anyone that
I
says.
believed.
But even just knowing that she can get up on a car while after this whole thing just happened. And she's like, if you read the behind the scenes stuff, she's like sobbing this entire time, and then all of a sudden has to perform and is like, great. I totally think it's a do it with a broken heart kind of thing. It's great.
Yeah, I forgot that that the whole thing with Kanye happened like the first moment.
The
first award within the first like 15 minutes of the show. And then she has to perform like 10 minutes later? Yeah. I can't even.
So we should get into the moment. Scott, do you kind of want to like brief us?
Yeah, so this is, like Rachel, you just said, this is the first award of the night. It is for Best Female Video. The nominees were Pink, So What, Katy Perry, Hot and Cold, Lady Gaga, Poker Face, Kelly Clarkson, My Life Would Suck Without You, Beyonce, Single Ladies, and Taylor Swift, You Belong With Me.
That is a stacked category. Stacked.
It is a stacked category.
Everyone is still famous and important and doing great work and... Wow, I know.
Everyone.
Well, they're all doing
well,
work.
except for Katy.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's one person that stands out there.
Yeah, let me take a step back. One person hasn't aged so well.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to put in the context that the VMAs since 2006 have been fully fan voted for these awards. Like there's some of the technical awards that are voted by staff or whatever, but these major awards are voted by fans online. And this award for Best Female Video is separate from the big award, Video of the Year. And Taylor Swift, You Belong With Me is nominated for Best Female Video, but it is not nominated for Video of the Year. Beyonce, Single Ladies is nominated for both, as well as Best Pop Video, which Taylor Swift was not. So Taylor Swift winning this award, I think, says a lot about people wanted to vote for her. She was not in Video of the Year, so they voted for her here. Where, I don't know if she were in both, would Beyonce, who knows what would have happened. But what does happen is that Taylor Swift wins. She goes up on stage. She says like 2 sentences, and then Kanye West appears.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't even know how he got up there. But
I rewatched it 3 times to see if you could see anything coming up, and you can't. It just all of a sudden cuts.
Appears.
Yeah.
It looks like it could have been like a pre-planned sketch or a bit.
Sure, yeah.
A lot of people in the audience thought that it might be, but it very much was not planned.
Yeah, so he interrupts her. He says Beyonce, Single Ladies, greatest video of all time. And then he leaves. Taylor is literally too stunned to speak. And then it cuts away. And so...
Yeah, I noticed her walking away, actually. And as the presenters kind of take her by the shoulders and turn her away, her shoulders look very stiff.
Yeah. And Beyonce's reaction, too, because they cut to her a lot, and she is like... It's not like she's happy that this happened.
No.
And of course, later in the night, when she does win Video of the Year, she very graciously just brings Taylor up and lets her give a speech, which is, maybe she didn't need to do, but it is, clearly showing like, hey, I'm sorry that happened. Please have your moment.
I really loved rereading that oral history of the moment and the night. I guess this was like 1 year that they knew who would win Video of the Year. And so they managed to kind of make it this like full story arc where they get Beyonce and Taylor to agree basically to like, hey, like this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And Beyonce, would you mind like letting Taylor, and of course it seemed like a total no-brainer for Beyonce, who's already won like a crap ton of awards even in 2009. I loved the point that the producers and the people behind the scenes in the oral history were making about how they like contained the story to one night, and that's what made it so compelling.
But I did find it really fascinating that the redemption moment was produced. It did, I mean, there was comments in the article that we'll post along with this episode that is kind of talking that like Beyonce was upset too and maybe was crying as well and like didn't want to be there anymore. And then, and so it shows that other side where we've really heard that moment through Taylor's perspective, or like we've heard it referenced a bunch in relation to Taylor. But obviously like Beyonce was upset and it happened to her as well because it was happening in her name. And I think the other thing that I don't see mentioned a lot as part of that, even though it's probably one of the reasons why that happened, is like Kanye was by all accounts very sloshed that night and had been drinking on the red carpet. And like people were like, that doesn't seem like something he would do, especially at the time. And so they were, well, at the time. So there were like would he have done that if he was, not as publicly drunk that night? And I don't know. It's an interesting kind of question is how did all that happen? And then, did that contribute? And it did contribute to Taylor's sense of victimhood. And, it makes sense that she's feeling like the victim that night because she pretty much was in terms of that. But then you kind of see that at a grander scale play out throughout the next, 10, 12 years here. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's interesting about this moment is that when you watch it, especially in context, it is a crazy moment, but it's maybe not the kind of thing that you would think, oh, this is going to be the defining thing of pop culture for the next 15 years. Because what ends up happening after this is Taylor Swift and Kanye and Beyonce, you would basically arguably say that those are the three most important people in pop culture for the next 10 years, right? From 2010 to 2020, like those are the three sort of people guiding pop music and pop culture conversation. So the fact that like it involves the three of them, it just stays relevant, and there continues to be like developments. Obviously, Kanye releases the song "Famous," where he references it and has a kind of disgusting music video with like a naked Taylor Swift doll. Gets involved with the Kim Kardashian stuff that leads to the album Reputation. All these things kind of spin out from it, and I think it's just interesting, because it has all this stuff that comes up about race and genre and men and women and all these it's like a perfect storm, I guess, that these two people and their very particular egos, have not been able to let go and has like almost ruined both of their lives, but in an interesting way, at least.
Certainly we could spend 2 hours. None of it fits into a quick little like podcast, unfortunately, because there's just so much there, as you were saying, Scott, like about like gender and race and egos and fame and careers. And I think we're collectively a little bit fatigued when the story gets like stretched out, and I'm speaking specifically about its reference in Taylor's latest album, the Tortured Poets Department, because there's a song, Thank You, Amy, that's capitalized in a way to be referencing like Kim Kardashian and Kim's role in that story with the Snapchat debacle for all who remember. And so when this first happened, Taylor Swift she's like, 19? Mm-hmm. She's released a few albums. She's gonna be huge, but she's like CMT, country music. I think now, of course, she's like the defining pop star. That she's arguably the most famous person in the world. And much deserved. Like, I love her music. And I loved seeing the Eras tour. That being said, I have some critiques, and I've talked about them before. So I'm just curious if this were to happen again. Like, say Chappell Roan won Best Female Video in some scenario, and she's pitted against Taylor Swift in the category, and someone runs up on stage to interrupt Chappell and is like, Taylor Swift deserved it. She should have won. Would Taylor Swift have the magnanimousness? Magnanimity?
Yeah.
Would Taylor, do you think she would have done the same as Beyonce did for her? I don't know. I like to hope so, because it's a good look. So.
I think it goes into a couple of things. I think it goes into her performative nature as a feminist, and she looks the best in terms of her politics and beliefs when she's able to like be performative about it and show everyone how good she is. And so I do think that she would have done something. I think this moment defines her career so much that people say that this is why she stands up so much at other award shows and claps even and dances along even when no one else seems to be, is like she's had that moment of like, you know, everyone hates me, or I feel like everyone hates me at this award show, and I don't want other people to feel that's how people perceive why she does what she does at award shows. And the other thing I was going to say is like Female Video of the Year is not that big of an award. Like it's great, but it's like I do think it was a very much a by the cuff decision that Kanye made to be like, dude, Taylor Swift won over like Beyonce. It's like, okay, but think of the category we're in right now. It's like,
yeah, well, that's one aspect. I was even just talking to someone, my coworker the other day, saying that we were doing this episode of the podcast, and she was like, yeah, but Single Ladies is way better. And I had to remind her, I was like, no, but Single Ladies did win Video of the Year. Like, you know, it sort of becomes lost in the narrative.
Right.
We forget, you know. Also, just to push back, or not push back, just to offer a counter about this hypothetical is, you know, again, as a big Taylor Swift fan, I'll put that caveat so people don't kill me. But, you know, you look at like when Adele won for 25 at the Grammys for Album of the Year, and she spent her speech saying Beyonce should have won this, you know, and Taylor Swift has recently, you know, won over Beyonce and like didn't bother to say anything like that. Now, of course, that's different than this situation. It's not like someone, you know, she's not apologizing for something. She won, and that's great for her. But I do think, yeah, I don't know. I think she wants to win and feels that she deserves to win things. So if this happened, I don't know.
Yeah,
I do agree that the performative nature of it would be different, but I think it's also, you know, we talked about Russell Brand and the horseshoe and the difference 15 years makes. It's also kind of interesting to think about, you know, 2009. This is like George Bush doesn't care about black people, Kanye. Taylor Swift, like a young blonde country singer from Nashville, and like their paths politically have diverged so much so that like tonight you'll know when you listen to this, but tonight is the last night of the DNC, and there's all these rumors that Taylor will be showing up. I think that's not the case, but it's plausible. And obviously Kanye is like endorsing Trump or running for president and being a wacko and whatever he's doing. But that sort of journey is kind of interesting to track as well.
Yeah.
When just watching this whole thing, like just from a bird's eye view, I was like, one part of me was like, God, I miss when award shows could be this unhinged. Like,
yeah,
it made me actually nostalgic just for these completely. I know, like I've worked at MTV and I've worked for the Recording Academy and like kind of seen at least to whatever extent I can see how the award show sausage gets made. So I know that it's like I think with this amount of retrospect, thinking about now, it feels like award shows have been pulled so tight, like the corset has been pulled so tight that like no air can come out or get in, and just getting those like unplanned moments feels even bigger, partially because of social media. But yeah, the slap, definitely, that's a perfect example. I think that there's a lot more fear now on all sides, the artists, producers, and whoever plans and directors of the award shows, that it's like a blessing and a curse, because like they want to create the viral moments.
But they don't want to be responsible.
But they don't want unplanned. They don't want to be held liable exactly for.
Sure.
And I was thinking so much about that, because this was like in 2009. I think this was like what helped make Twitter kind of help put Twitter on the map.
Yes.
That people were like watching in real time and reacting in real time, and you could see a chronological feed of those reactions. It helps kick off this town square social media experience where you've got to be on your couch with your computer and the TV on, which now it's like people just want to manufacture, like I was saying. But it has to be just planned, just right.
Yeah.
Because God forbid someone comes off poorly and then gets piled on. So anyway.
This was the last time we had the like visceral reaction without the concept of live tweeting. Like, I don't think live tweeting was a thing in 2009. And I think it became a thing after, to be like, are we going to catch the next Taylor Kanye moment as it happens? So I do think that is an interesting part of it too.
Which I guess was the Miley Robin Thicke twerking thing a couple VMAs later,
Yeah.
Oh, I did work at MTV for that one.
Yeah.
That was actually really fun to see that happen. I mean, Robin Thicke, I was not so much. I never really liked him that much, but I don't know. But it was like a really big moment. But as I was telling you, I didn't want to forget, like, in terms of the history before each VMAs took place. Like when MTV still had news and MTV had blogs, I worked for the pop music blog called Buzzworthy, and then we would like spend the like month leading up to the VMAs making all this content around like, remember when this happened, remember when that happened, and it was like these like best moments, moments you thought you forgot about, and it was like very BuzzFeedy listicle, but we were never ever under any circumstances ever allowed to mention Taylor Swift and Kanye West ever. That moment was scrubbed. I think the Billboard article talked about how it was, you can't find it anywhere. Yeah. You definitely couldn't find it. That and Britney Spears' 2007 performance. You could not find those, and you could not talk about them or write about them.
That's really interesting. It just goes to show how seriously they took it in terms of like, this was not manufactured. This was not something we want to, like you said, be liable for. It's just something that catapulted these artists and this moment to mega fame. So very interesting.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, are there any other like last little moments or things that we wanted to mention?
I had fun seeing like Leighton Meester.
Oh yeah. Every single presenter too was like so famous. Crazy.
Yes. Just the pairings of presenters like Jamie Lynn Sigler from The Sopranos and Diddy, and I'm like, in my notes I'm writing, get her away from him, and then Diddy mentioning like Kanye for best male video and everyone booing him, and Diddy genuinely seeming not to understand why. He was like, what did I say?
Yeah, what happened?
Genuinely seems confused.
Also, Miranda Cosgrove and Justin Bieber introducing, and Justin Bieber being like, shout out to Taylor Swift, she's awesome, and then just knowing what all is happening later with Scooter Braun and everything is crazy.
Oh, I know. It's like before he's like still a tiny child.
He's so tiny.
I really liked Jack Black leading the crowd in a like Hail Satan prayer.
Now take the hand of the person next to you. Come on, Leighton. Dear Dark Lord Satan, hope everything's good with you.
Oh yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Very weird.
And Leighton Meester is like just sitting there like, okay.
Metal. Very metal.
Thank you.
I also, we didn't talk that much about the Michael Jackson stuff. I found myself like crying during Madonna's speech. And like Michael Jackson and his legacy is a whole other podcast that we will not get into now. But I thought that whole segment that opened the show was really well done.
I did too.
They thought that was going to be the like top billing like headline of the event, and it just kind of got subsumed by Taylor and Kanye. But yeah, I agree, and like I liked how MTV involved Janet so much, because this was only a few years after the wardrobe malfunction, and she'd been kind of excommunicated by the Grammys, and so good on MTV for making her such a centerpiece in it. And
one last note that I did have was when Lady Gaga won Best New Artist, and she says, "This is for the gods and the gays," and it cuts to Perez Hilton in the audience. He's like pumping his fist. What a 2009 moment.
Yeah. And also, who the fuck is Asher Roth?
Oh my gosh, that was the most 2009 moment of all time. It was so funny. Being like, okay, we have Eminem, we have Jay-Z, we have Diddy, whatever, and then it's like, and Asher Roth. It's like, it's just crazy. Oh man, I don't miss that aspect of it at all. He can stay in 2009.
Yeah, I agree with what Katherine, you said in the very beginning. Like, just the amount of, like, it was like 90% talent that is still around and doing the thing today. And then like 10% who?
Yeah, exactly.
Like 308?
Yeah,
808?
303, yeah.
303, that completely fell through.
All right, well, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us about this very fun award show that has haunted everyone for the last 15 years. If people want to follow you online and find out what you're doing, where should they go?
Yeah, I still exist on Twitter, for better or for worse. So I will never call it X, and you can't make me Elon Musk. So I'm at Rachel Brods there, and if you want, you can find me on Instagram too, at @rebrods, and you can always just Google my name, and all that stuff comes right up.
Listen to NSYNC Pod. We love NSYNC.
And listen to the NSYNC Pod. We're planning our 3rd season currently, but we're giving my co-host Aviv a little break because he is out promoting a movie that he directed and wrote and produced and like triple threaded. So
that's awesome.
Yay, Aviv.
Yay, that's so cool.
We'll circle back soon. More NSYNC.
Follow us on Twitter. Maybe we will live tweet tonight's VMAs? We'll see. At Great Song Pod, GR8 Song Pod, on Twitter, on TikTok, Instagram. Email us. We'd love to hear from you about what you think of the 2009 VMAs.
Yeah, and if you need a little sneaky link of how to watch the 2009 VMAs, shoot us a DM. Maybe we could hook you up. I don't know. All right, well, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you all next time.
Bye.